Good morning. It's so good to be with you this morning. And thank you so much for allowing me to share with you a little bit about what it means to be a missionary. My husband Eric and my two boys Joseph and Daniel, myself, have been missionaries in the country of Honduras for the past 11 years. And I can honestly say they've been the best years of my life. Some of you might be wondering, what in the world's a missionary? What do they do? How do they get to where they're living now? And if you're anything like me, you had an idea of what a missionary is. Growing up, I used to think that a missionary was somebody that packed up all their earthly belongings, gathered their family, traveled halfway across the world, lived in a hot jungle, ate bugs, bathed in dirty river water, and if they survived the lion attack or the cannibals living in their village, then in 2 to 3 years they will come visit your church, tell you all about their adventure, and then at the end of the service beg you for some money. What I've realized over the past few years is that there's nothing farther than the truth for most missionaries. Eric and I, we arrived here in Honduras 11 years ago, and at first it kind of felt weird. I even told Eric, I was like, are you sure we're on the mission field? It doesn't feel like we're on the mission field. We live in the capital city of Tegucigalpa, and we have all the modern conveniences here in the city. There's running water, electricity, we have Walmart, we have any kind of restaurant you want to eat at, McDonald's, Burger King, all that stuff. So at first it didn't really feel like we were on the mission field until the culture shock set in. And then we realized, okay, we're in a different field or a different world even sometimes. But to me, mission work is one of the most exciting and most fulfilling job that you can ever have. There's nothing better than following God and depending on Him every step of the way in everything that we do in our life. It was hard at first when we first got here to Honduras. Like I said, you have culture shock, that you have to learn a new language. When I first got here to Honduras, thankfully Eric knew a little bit more Spanish, but when I got here, all I knew was hola, adios, and maybe gracias. I'm not really quite sure about that. But I had to learn a new language, I had to learn a new culture, I had to learn to eat food. My first week here in Honduras, and I'm really weird about food and textures and stuff like that, but somebody gave me some soup and I looked down in my bowl and there was this piece of meat with squiggly line in it, and I told Eric, I was like, I think this is stomach of some kind. And Eric's like, no, don't worry about it, it's not, it's just a piece of meat. So he was chewing on this piece of meat, and we later asked the lady what it was, and she said that it was cow stomach. One time we had to eat iguana, so there's a lot of stuff that we had to adjust to when we first got here to Honduras, and that's just part of mission life. There's a lot of people ask me, what do you do on the mission field? Well, a lot of the stuff that we do here is a lot of the stuff that you would do in the States. I still have to get up in the morning and send my kids off to school. My kids still have to do homework. Eric has to go out and fix the car or, drive to town. We still have to do grocery shopping. I like to say life on the mission field is basically life in the States with a little twist. Joseph has to do homework, but not only do we have to study in English because he's in a bilingual school, but we also have to study in Spanish as well. And that's been a learning curve for me, that I would have to teach my kid in Spanish, a language that, I still struggle in sometimes, but that's just life. He studies, but sometimes it's studying with a twist, and we have to study Spanish. Another thing that we have to adjust to is, we have running water, but it comes on every other day. And a story that just happened, just like last Sunday, I had about 28 people here in my home, and we were eating lunch together, as we usually do on Sunday afternoons. And I had soup for lunch, and I did not use throwaway bowls and cups and stuff like that. And so then before we were finished eating lunch, the water got cut off, and we no longer had water. Usually the church ladies will help me clean up after lunch, but since we didn't have any water, everything just got piled up in the kitchen, and we had to leave it like that till the next morning. And that's just part of life. In the States, you have to do dishes. In Honduras, you have to do dishes, but sometimes it's with a twist. Sometimes I have to do my laundry at night because the water only comes at night. And so there's just different things that you have to do on the mission field. Normal life, just with a twist. One of the amazing things about it being a missionary is you're so involved in ministry. You know, you have all these other aspects of your life that you have to do, like fixing the car, sending your kids to school, doing the laundry, the dishes, or whatever. But your whole life is based and revolving around your ministry. Here in Honduras, we're very involved in church planting and discipleship and growing the congregation. And so this is what our week would look like. So on Monday, we try to take a family day, which doesn't work very often, but we try to do it. Tuesday night, we have a service in Las Uvas, which is our second church plant. And then Wednesday night, we have a church service here in Tillorarchy in the Mother Church. Thursday, there's calling and evangelizing, as well as a discipleship class in the evening. These are for new believers that want to get baptized. We have a 12-week discipleship class with them. And then on Friday, there's a youth service led by one of our young men that attend our service. But our young people get together from both churches, and we have a youth service. And then Saturday is more calling and evangelizing. And on Sunday, we have Sunday morning service here in Tillorarchy. Then we'll eat lunch with about 28 people. And then we will go to Las Uvas service, afternoon service at 3 o'clock. After that service, we will come back and we'll have coffee and refreshments. And then we will have the evening service at 6 o'clock. And in the morning and afternoon service, while Eric is doing the preaching, then I will pull out the kids and I will have Sunday school with them. And so our life is ministry. It's what God called us to do, and it's what we love to do. And it's just one of the best thing about being a missionary. I said that one of the hard things about being a missionary is learning a new language, new culture, and new food. But it's also one of the amazing things about being a missionary. You get to learn a whole new language. It's hard, but it's something that's amazing. You get to communicate with a whole new group of people, and that, to me, that's just awesome. Learning a new culture, that's amazing. When I first got here, I got in a lot of trouble. One of the things that you don't point with your finger, you point with your mouth like this. And I got in trouble pointing with my finger. Another thing is, one of the examples of a cultural thing that I had to learn was, if you want to talk about how tall a person is, you go like this with your hand. And in America, we'll say, oh, the boy was about this tall, And people here would look at you like, did you just call my son a dog? Because that's how you say an animal is this tall here in Honduras. But to say a person is this tall. So it's something that you had to learn, something I didn't know before. And it's just amazing to get these new cultural insights being a missionary. And one of the things that I love about being a missionary is, it's hard leaving your family and your friends back in the States, and sometimes you feel, do they remember me? Or, you get homesick around the holidays, but you know what? It becomes to the point here in Honduras where you make new friends. And these people, the people that go with you to church, or, that you interact with day in and day out, they become your new family. They become your friends. And that's just one of the biggest blessings that a person can have in their life. You can never have too many friends. And it's just amazing that, when you're working in God's work, when you're a missionary, you have family all around the world. And that's just one of the best blessings that you can have. But I think the best part about being a missionary is the personal growth, or the growth in my faith and the faith of my children and the faith of my husband, just watching our faith grow in Jesus and what he can do. And your faith can't help but grow when you have a front row seat to all the miracles that God does in your life and the life of people around you. we watch people, God change people every day. People that were broken, they were hurt, they had a miserable life, they had an evil life before meeting Jesus. And you watch God change them day by day by day. One of those amazing stories, and this has just happened in the last few months. There's a man here that started coming to our church about 10 years ago when we started the congregation here in Tiliwarki, and we've been praying for him for 10 years. He was the community drunk, and many nights he would come and just walk in front of our house back and forth, and just yelling things and preaching and just doing, I don't know, craziness. And, you know, we prayed for him. We prayed for him for 10 years. And just this past summer when we were back home for deputation, we got a call and they said that Adam had fell and he was in critical condition in the hospital. But Adam realized that if he had died that night, that he would have gone to hell, that he would have suffered for eternity. And so Adam started coming back to church again, and he gave his heart to the Lord. And it is just amazing to watch God change his life from something so horrible into something so beautiful. Adam is taking the discipleship classes right now, and he tells Eric, you know, I want to serve God with all my heart. You know, I want to preach. I want people to see the change in me. And people in the community have seen the change in Adam because they know him. He's the community drunk. He's been walking these streets for I don't know how long before Eric and I ever came here to Honduras. This past Christmas, he told us, he said, this is the first Christmas that I've had sober in over 20 years. And it's just, nobody can do that. Only God can take such a damaged life and to make it into something beautiful. And here on the mission field as missionaries, we get to see that firsthand. And it's just so amazing and so awesome. Our faith has grown by leaps and bounds, and just watching God supply our every need, help us every step of the way. When problems comes, he gives us the wisdom. All that comes from God, and we're right there on the front line watching him do it. And there's nothing more amazing and more wonderful than actually seeing that firsthand. I heard that some of you might be interested in becoming a missionary one day, and you might be wondering, you know, how in the world do I know if God's calling me to be a missionary or not? Well, let me tell you a little bit about how I knew God was calling me to be a missionary. Some of you might know this. I grew up in the country of Jordan, and ever since I was 5 years old, I knew that I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I was going to be a famous heart surgeon. I wanted to travel the world, drive a red Corvette convertible, do all the things that I wanted to do. And so I came here to the States to study. And I was here in my junior year of high school, and that summer I went to a camp meeting, and in that camp meeting there were missionaries there speaking about Papua New Guinea and their work in Papua New Guinea. And at the end of the service, God spoke to me and he said, Hannah, would you be willing to be a missionary? And as people went up to the altar and they were, you know, answering the calls that God has placed in their heart, I got up from that service and I went to my cabin, and I started a year-long struggle between my will and God's will, because being a missionary was just not part of the plan for my life. And so the next year, it was the most miserable year of my life. I can't even explain to you how miserable I felt, because I was disobedient to God and what he wanted for my life. But I thought I knew everything, and I thought I had it all planned out. And so my senior year of high school, we were in revival service at God's Bible School, and God came in a wonderful way in that service, and the Lord was merciful to me, and he said, Hannah, would you either give me your all or you will lose everything. And I'm so thankful to tell you this morning, I said, Lord, if you want me to go to the mission field tomorrow, that's exactly what I'm willing to do. I'm willing to pack it all up and go tomorrow. Well, of course, the Lord didn't send me to the mission field the next morning. But I thought to myself, I got to prepare myself for this mission work stuff. And so I knew the devil likes to tell us lies sometimes, and so I knew that the Lord was going to send me to the hottest country on the planet. So I would get in my car, I would roll up my windows, turn off the air conditioning, and see how far I can go before suffocating, and I'd have to roll down the windows again. And so, but the Lord told me, He said, Hannah, that's not what I want you to do. I want you to prepare. I want you to go to Bible school, to Penview Bible Institute, and I want you to train to become a missionary. And that's where I went to Penview. First day of registration was my first day on campus. Didn't know much about the school. And that's where I met Eric, and it's been an adventure ever since. And so, you know, that's how God spoke to me with a small, still voice. But He doesn't have to speak to you that way. He does not have to call you in the same exact way that He called me. You know, there's many different ways that God can call a person. One of those ways is you have a deep desire in your heart to want to serve the Lord and want to help others that might be, you know, in less fortunate than you, in a different country. You might have, you might see a need in a certain country, and a missionary comes up to you, and they know that you love to teach, and they say, you know what, we have a big need here in Honduras to teach children. A lot of them don't know how to read and write. Adults can't read and write. Would you be willing to come and help us for a certain period of time, or as long as the Lord would have you work with us? Would you be willing to do that? So sometimes God calls us through a certain need on a mission field. Other ways God can call us is, you know, your parents might have been missionaries in a foreign country for a time, and you feel this desire of wanting to continue the work that your parents have started in a certain mission field. Or your pastor could come to you and say, you know, I see a certain potential in you that you would do awesome in a certain mission field, or here or there. So there's different ways that God can get our attention and say, would you be willing to be a missionary? Is that something you're willing to do? You know, that's one of the most important things that you can do. If you feel God leading you into missions, or leading you into teaching, or whatever you feel that God is directing your life for you to do later on in life, the most important thing is for you to say, Lord, whatever you have for me, I am willing. I am willing to give it all up and just give it to you. I want to follow you every step of the way. You know, there's many things that you can do once you feel God leading you into missions. One of the most important thing to do is pray, pray, pray. God's never going to lead you in the wrong direction. You can talk to your parents. It's very important to talk to your parents, your teachers. Please call missionaries. Call me if you have any questions. Many other missionaries, I'm sure, would be so happy to answer your questions. Talk to missionaries. They've gone through what you're going through right now. You know, they know they can give you some answers. Also, you can talk to mission organizations and mission leaders, and they'll be more happy to talk to you about whatever questions you have. But most importantly is you need to train. I would not want a doctor to operate on me if he did not go to medical school, or a lawyer to represent me in a courtroom if he didn't go to law school. And it's the same thing with missions. We need to give God our best, and we need to be trained. We need to learn how to deal in certain situations, cross-cultural situations. And there's many schools that you guys could go to. The school that God led me to go to was Penview Bible Institute, and I believe it's one of the top schools for missionary training. And I'm sure Brother McDowell, if you have any questions, Brother McDowell would love to talk to you and get you into the missions program there. But there's many things that you can do to start preparing and to start figuring out what God wants for you in your life and in the future, if He has anything for you to do with mission work. But another important thing is make sure you do not get sidetracked. The devil will try to put many obstacles in your way and your path to try to get you to go in a different directions. And sometimes he'll tell us, well, this is not a bad thing. You can do this. But we have to stay focused and say, I'm going to follow God wherever he wants me to go. The devil many times tried to discourage me from going to the mission field. He would say, you would have a better life being a doctor, or you would do better doing this, or, you can make more money doing this thing, or you can travel the world better. But there's something that I found out, and I actually realized it just in the last few years, is that God knows me way better than I will ever know myself. He knows where I need to be in the exact spot that I need to be to reach my fullest potential for him. And if you would allow God to use you in that manner, I promise you, you will never regret one step that you take with him.